Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're continuing our exciting what-if story. What if Naruto was born as a girl? Tsunade discovered the secret inside her. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss future episodes. If you're enjoying this story, comment below. The secret must be revealed. Now sit back, relax, and discover what Tsunade finds next as Naruto's hidden secret begins to change everything. Let's begin. Part 2. Later in the day, the newly promoted genin came to the classroom. Naru arrived in time to sit in the back, some of the more popular seats with the slacker students, as she liked to call them. At the next table over sat Shino and then Hinata following, with Choji next to Kiba at the other table. Shikamaru was sleeping at one of the front desks, while Ino and Sakura fought over the only open seat next to Sasuke, whom had chosen a seat against the wall. Naru hopped in front of Sasuke, crouching down in front of him to glare at him. She was grumpy, and it didn't help that the fangirls in the class were sighing over Sasuke-kun again. She just didn't see what was so appealing. The boy may have good looks on his side and some brains, but he had nothing in way of experience and was an emotionless Tem that couldn't see 2 feet in front of his own ego. Let alone through her henge. In her opinion, maybe in a few years he would become competent enough to see through her henge, or the activation of his Sharingan, but in her opinion it would take a lot of hard work. Hey Udobi, get out of Sasuke-kun's fac. Sakura started to screech as the boy seated at the desk in front of Naru started to turn around, bumping Naru and disturbing her precarious position from in front of Sasuke. Sakura could only watch in horror as Naruto fell forward and kissed her Sasuke-kun on the lips. Sasuke's and Naru's eyes widened, for different reasons, as the class fell silent. Naru's eyes grew huge as she screamed in her head. No, my first kiss. To the TEME. Kami-sama, that's just plain cruel. While the QB sniggered in the background. Kami-kit, calm down, it's just a kiss. He said as the 12-year-old's face drained of color. That was my first kiss, Q-chan. The only thing left pure from those bastards. She screeched in the few seconds that the two boys were frozen like that. The kitsune's silence was all that was given by way of response, even he knew better than to say anything. Sasuke stared in shock as the boy he had barely ever paid attention to in class changed slightly, but only for a second. So fast was this change that the Uchiha wasn't sure if he had imagined it or not. Long blonde hair was pulled back into a low-rise bun as a distinctively female face stared back at him for a moment as Naruto jerked back and coughed. Kami-sama, I'm poisoned. Ew, she said in shock, her hands going to her throat. No way, that must have been my imagination, Sasuke thought in dazed disgust. For a moment there he could have sworn Naruto was a girl. Iruka walked in slowly to a silent class, his back still sore from earlier this morning, even though a medic nin had healed him. All right class, settle down. I will now be stating who your teams are, he said after the group of children had seen him. He didn't notice the silence beforehand or the tense atmosphere between the two boys. Why's Naruto Baka here then? Didn't he fail? Sakura said, confused. She had won against Ino this time and was sitting in the closest seat to Sasuke, the one in next to him. No, Naruto-kun passed because of special circumstances. Iruka replied before unrolling the scroll. These are the following teams. Team 5, Junin Sensei, Sarutobi Asuma. Genin, Yamanaka Ino. Genin, Nara Shikamaru. Genin, Akamichi Choji. Team 7, Junin Sensei, Hitaki Kakashi. Genin, Uzumaki Naruto. Genin, Haruno Sakura. Genin, Uchiha Sasuke. Team 8, Junin Sensei, Kurenai Yuahi. Genin, Aburame Shino. Genin, Hyuga Hinata. Genin, Inazuka Kiba. Your Junin Sensei will be here shortly to collect his or her new team. Good luck everyone. Iruka finished off, rolling up the scroll and heading outside. Most of the team's senseis came in immediately and set out with their own new genin. Soon teams 5 and 8's senseis came in together and collected the 6 students, leaving Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura to wait for their new sensei. Yes, I know they were supposed to have lunch first, but I really didn't want to rewrite that scene, so I skipped it. Sorry people. Meanwhile, with the Hokage and Kakashi. The Hokage sighed and stepped into the unlocked apartment. He had been there once or twice before to check up on Naru, but hadn't been there in a while. Seeing the genjutsu she put up was always a shocker. So, this is Na-chan's apartment. Kakashi questioned, doubt creeping into his voice as he picked up a ramen cup that was part of the genjutsu and set it back down. Yes, but this isn't the actual apartment. This is the genjutsu she keeps up for her safety. The Hokage replied, going through the hand seals to see through the genjutsu while Kakashi blinked in surprise as the real apartment came to life from under the illusion technique. This, he said looking around with a wide eye as he picked up the almost empty milk carton and looked at the expiration date. Rotten, he questioned himself setting it back down in the exact same position he had picked it up. Naru had never taken him to her apartment before, so this was a new experience that made him want to protect his adopted Imoudo even more. 3 hours later and another prank prepared at the door's entrance, Hatake Kakashi slid open the door. Naru grinned at the look on Kakashi's face as he looked up to see an eraser full of chalk bearing down on his face, landing with a satisfying splat. Naru snickered at the results of her prank. Oh man, Kashi-ni-chan looks hilarious. She thought laughing in her head. Sakura stuttered out apologies while Sasuke looked like he had a hint of shock in his face from the fact that the man who had been caught in such a trick was actually a Junin. Kakashi's eye narrowed and locked in on Naru, knowing this was the results of his partner's trickster streak. She gulped nervously and inconspicuously waved when she knew the other two had their attention on Kakashi. Well, as first impressions go, all I can say is, I hate you. Kakashi said cheerfully by way of greeting. Anbu Wolf's eye glittered in hidden amusement that only Naru caught as he instructed the other three on where to meet tomorrow, not to eat breakfast and dismissed them. Sakura and Sasuke left without a backwards glacé and Naru and Kakashi stayed. As soon as their chakra signatures were far enough away that they couldn't be overheard they began. Hey Kakashi-ni-chan, Naru said softly, dropping her hinge and leaving her genjutsu up. Hey Na-chan, how have you been? Last time I saw you was 3 weeks ago. The silver-haired shinobi replied, approaching her and giving her a hug in greeting. Naru's arms wrapped around Kakashi's back as she giggled. Better than you seem to be Chalkdust-san, she said cheerfully, releasing herself from the hug. So, Sasuke-kun's interesting. The man said vaguely, an eye-crinkle smile showing. You could say that. He's a tem and a cold tem at that. The blonde grumbled her reply, growling in the back of her throat as her Ni-chan laughed. Don't laugh. He really is. You try dealing with that bastard all the time. He's a really party pooper. She ranted, her voice sounding strained and frustrated. Sorry. You're right. Come on. Let's go train as we catch up. Oh, I saw Weasel-san. He said hi and gave me a present, a hug not literally, he told me to give you one from him and a verbal message for you. I'll give them to you after training. Kakashi added on, as if that news wasn't important in the least. What, and you're telling me this now? No fair, Naru whined as she followed Kakashi out the door and out of the school, Kakashi laughing all the way. Oh. The next day the three new teammates met up. Sasuke arrived first, a few minutes early. Sakura arrived right on time, grinning when she saw that it was only Sasuke and herself. Naru on the other hand, slept in and ate breakfast, something Kakashi had told them specifically not to do. She snorted when she thought about that. No way in hell am I not eating after the sparring we did yesterday Kakashi-ni-chan. You can deal with me being full. She thought with a huff, rubbing the place over where the huge bruise he had given her last night had been. A half an hour after the four were supposed to meet Naru finally left her apartment under hinge, walking slowly to where the four were supposed to be. Dobi, you're late, came the first words out of Sasuke's mouth when he saw Naru walking slowly towards the duo. Naruto's attitude had started to bug him since the dreaded kiss they had accidentally shared in class the day before. As such, he had started to think back on anything he could remember about the boy in front of him. He had come to several grim conclusions. He didn't know his classmate, newly made teammate, at all. His brother, before he had become his enemy, had asked him questions about said classmate that hadn't made Sasuke ask the questions to himself. Now that drew a red flag in his mind, making him ask himself a question. What would an Anbu need to know about a lowly dead last academy student? But not as late as Kakashi-sensei, am I right? She asked, with a smirk, the two other genin nodding reluctantly. I'm only an hour late. Oh well, wake me when he gets here, will you Sakura-chan? I'd rather wake to your pretty face than Sasuke-tem's ugly mug. Naruto said, laying down on the ground off to the side, and closing his eyes. Sasuke-kun is not ugly. Sakura shouted, then huffed. How long do you think it's going to take Sakura Baka to realize that Sasuke Tem is and never was into her now that we're on teams? Naru asked Kyubi, appearing in the cage with him. I'm betting 6 months, Kit. The human form of the kitsune said. Nah, it'll be longer than that. Probably at least a year. Naru guesstimated as she walked over to the kitsune. Sitting in her older brother's lap like a small child, she cuddled against him, needing contact. Last night's nightmares were still haunting her. The Kyubi sighed and rocked her back and forth, his arms wrapped around the human he had come to look at like a sister, like a human would a sister, not a demon. 2 hours later on the dot, Kakashi appeared in a puff of smoke. Yo, he said, a grin crinkling his eye. He had spied on the trio for a little bit, Naru spotting his chakra signature immediately, even while she was still talking to Kyubi, and giving him a small wave in his direction, the other two not catching the movement. Sakura jumped, and Sasuke looked up surprised while Naru stretched as she sat up slowly. You're late, Kakashi-sensei. Again, she growled in a fake angry voice. Well, you see, there was this old woman, the silver-haired Junin-sensei said, before he was cut off. Liar. Naru responded lazily, looking over at the other two who were just recovering from their shock at Kakashi's appearance and were now looking back and forth between the two, their eyes full of interest. Kakashi laughed nervously and rubbed the back of his neck as Naru's face lit up with a grin. So Kakashi-sensei, what are we going to learn first? How to throw people 100 feet? She asked, fake excitement inserted perfectly into the questions, enough that Sasuke and Sakura couldn't tell she was faking, but Kakashi could hear the sarcasm. Well, actually Naruto-kun, we're going to move on to the actual genin test. Kakashi said, taking in the two looks of actual surprise and the fake actual surprise that had a hidden glare beneath it. Meet me at training ground 23, I'll see you there. He added, raising his hand, and before the two could protest, vanished in a puff of smoke that was starting to get really familiar. Show off. Naru grumbled and started stomping off towards the training ground, wishing she could just do the same, but considering she had to act like a genin she couldn't. Why did Dobi say that? It's not like he could do it, Sasuke wondered, a slight frown quickly disappearing under his mask as soon as it appeared on his face. Naruto Baka, where are you going? Sakura screeched out, the other half of her team standing there with looks of confusion evident on their faces. Training ground 23, duh. Kakashi-sensei will have already been there 10 minutes at the rate why we walk, so we've got to get moving now. Naru said, still not awake and already frustrated with her pink-haired teammate. How come we couldn't get someone like Shikamaru-san or even Kiba-san instead of her? She grumbled to Kyubi, turning around and heading in the direction she had been going in the first place, hoping the two wouldn't follow. Now Kit, patience, Kyubi said by way of reply, sniggering at her aggravation. It's not funny, she thought as she heard Sasuke sigh and start forward. Dobi's right for once, Sakura-san. Training ground 23 is this way, he murmured as he passed by her. I am not a Dobi, Tem. Naru growled out, her irritated tone seeping into her words. Sasuke blinked in surprise. Naruto's 20 meters in front of me. How the hell did he hear what I said? Sasuke thought in confusion. Sakura fell in last, silently trailing behind Sasuke with a frown on her lips. When the trio reached the training grounds 13 minutes later, they saw Kakashi reading a little orange book while leaning against one of 3 thick, wooden poles sticking straight up out of the ground. Okay kids, Kakashi started in, only to pause at the sound of a dark growl coming from Naru with a deadly glare directed at him accompanying it. Anyways, today's test is the bell test. I have 2 bells tied to my belt, if you can grab either one of them, you pass. The silver-haired shinobi said. But wouldn't that mean that only 2 people will pass? Sakura asked, confused. Na-chan was right, she's only book smart and that tends to get annoying. Quickly, Kakashi thought with a sigh, nodding his head. Correct, Sakura-chan. You have 3 hours. When I say go, you can start. Good luck, he said with another eye crinkle. At the response of 3 nods he started the countdown. Time to play stupid, Naru thought while saying, I'm gonna get one of those bells. Believe it, as she made the hand sign to form Bunshin when Kakashi said to. Now's not the time to start yet, Naruto-kun. Kakashi said teasingly in a quiet voice. Naru's teammates jumping at the Junin's sudden appearance in the middle of them. Kakashi sensei, let me go. Naru growled back, dancing laughter hidden in her eyes, which were blocked from Sakura's view, but not Sasuke's. What the hell, does Dobi know or sensei from before we were placed on teams? He wondered, his eyes widening at the look. Even when he had bothered to pay attention to a prank Naruto had pulled, his humor didn't reach his eyes like it had just then. Just as suddenly Kakashi disappeared and Naru was free. 2, 1, begin. Kakashi said after pulling out his book. Immediately Sasuke and Sakura disappeared while Naru attacked. What say you to us leaving Cage Bunchins in our places and going off to spar some more? Naru asked, a grin lighting her features as she acted weak and slow. Kakashi easily blocked her kick and shook his head. No, we need to see Sasuke and Sakura's style of combat for ourselves, even you have to admit that that's important. He replied, bending backwards to avoid a jump kick. Fine, but you owe me ramen and dango then. Naru replied with a pout. Kakashi winced and agreed reluctantly as he threw her into the lake nearby. 3 hours later, and Naru reluctantly agreeing to fall purposely into the trap that would force her to become the person tied to a log, Sasuke and Sakura lay collapsed on the ground, Naru tied to the middle log. Kakashi sighed and shook his head. Sasuke-kun, Sakura-chan, because you two didn't try to steal the lunches, I'll let you two eat them. We'll resume the game when I get back, he said, glancing at Naru. Just as he expected, Naru opened her mouth and whined. But sensei, I'm hungry too, she whined in her hanged voice. Well then, you shouldn't have tried opening the bentos early, now should you? The shinobi replied, his eye alight with amusement. Naru grumbled and glared as Kakashi disappeared in a puff of smoke. As the two other genin started eating, Sakura kept glancing up at Naru, a guilt-filled expression on her face. Naru's stomach gave a loud grumble and Sasuke glanced up startled. He sighed in defeat and stood up. Here, we'll give you some of ours, he said softly. No, I won't, Sakura denied, making Sasuke glare. Listen up, we've been at this all morning and the only thing we haven't tried is working together. In order to do that, we all need to have some food in our stomachs, so you're sharing too. The Uchiha told the pink kunoichi with a glare in a strange twist of events. Several seconds later, Sakura sighed in defeat and nodded her agreement. You're right, she said grudgingly as she moved to share. Hold it right there, Kakashi said sternly, appearing again right as Sakura was about to put the food in Naru's mouth. All three looked up at him, two with something akin to fear and a third with a look of triumph. You all, pass, he finished with a grin, mentally wincing at how much his bank account was about to drop. I really shouldn't have made that bet Na-chan last night. 3 meals of however much food the winner wanted was not the best idea I've ever had, he thought, sliding a kunai up the ropes, cutting them and allowing Naru freedom. Ramen's on me, come on team, he said, turning around. I'll meet you at Ichiraku's, he finished, disappearing. Okay, sorry about this. Yes, I know the way missions are assigned in the book. Am I going to follow it? No, this is my FIC, and I really don't feel like writing my FIC like that. So the Hokage assigns Team Kakashi their missions in his office because of their 2 Anbu team members, even though the other 2 don't have a clue. The 4 will meet their new assignment at the gates at a specific time instead of in front of the Hokage. If you guys want any D-rank missions written up, you guys are going to have to request them. Naru sighed. The 3 genin had been doing D-rank missions for weeks and she was so bored she was debating on going clinically insane. Come on Ji-chan, give us something harder. We've done a whole bunch of D-rank missions already, Naru complained, glaring at the older man who hid a smile. Who knew Anbu could get so bored? Okay Naruto-kun, I have a C-rank mission for you. It's an escort mission to the Land of Waves. The bridge builder would like some extra protection along the road and with finishing his bridge. The Hokage said, trying not to grin. Yes, Naru cheered, jumping up into the air. We accept Hokage-sama, Kakashi replied as Naru jumped around. You'll start your mission tomorrow at the main gate at 8 o'clock tomorrow. Team Kakashi, dismissed. However, Naruto-kun, Kakashi-kun, please stay a moment, Sarutobi said, a frown flitting across his face before being hidden away. Sakura and Sasuke bowed and left the room, while Naruto and Kakashi waited for the door to close. As soon as the click from the door closing was heard, Naru dropped her henge and the leader of Konoha spoke, the 3 people completely alone now. Anbu Fox-san and Wolf-san, your mental health evaluation psychiatric appointments will be assigned after you come back from this next mission. Therefore, I want your 4-cell team to take a 3-night extended trip to an onsen on the way back instead of just coming back here. The only thing you will need to do while you are there is watch Uchiha Sasuke-san, collect a report from Anbu Weasel-san on the last day and relax. The Sandaime commanded quietly, his fingers laced together as he watched the two Anbu carefully. Thank you Ji-chan, Naru said excitedly, clambering around the desk to hurriedly give the older man a hug. This'll be the first time I've seen Tachi-ni-chan in several years, she said in a voice full of enthusiasm and a thread of real cheerfulness underneath all of the fake emotions she kept up. Not that anyone other than the two people in the room, Itachi, Shizune and Tsunade, would be able to tell. Although she hadn't seen Tsunade or Shizune since the year before the last, and that was because she had specifically tracked them down during one of the academy's vacations. The trip was timed perfectly, she wouldn't be back in the village for her birthday and would be seeing Itachi as well. Hi Hokage-sama, Kakashi said, bowing. Naru-chan, I'll give you your birthday present when you get back, just make sure to be good for Kakashi-san and to not forget your act. The strong, elderly man said, glancing up to catch the look of surprise flashing across the silver-haired nin's face standing across from him. The trip's not my present? Naru asked, confused. No, your present will be given to you later, even though it won't be on your birthday the 10th, or even the usual date of the 11th. The Hokage replied, giving the preteen on last hug while dropping the information to Kakashi subtly. Apparently only Itachi knew Naru's birthday, and that was because he had told him it when Itachi had asked him years ago. Oh, well, I'll see you later Ji-chan, Naru replied as the two Anbu walked out of the Hokage's office after she reapplied her henge, to meet the other two nin outside. So what did Hokage-sama want? Sakura asked, curious. Sasuke had been watching the two carefully over these last few weeks, something nagging him in the back of his mind. A few times it seemed as if while fighting Kakashi, Naruto, as he thought of her, would become faster, more graceful, faster, powerful, flowing in his attacks. Only a glare from Kakashi would remind him to slow down, it seemed, to which she would soon get thrown out of the fight. Something's going on here, and I'm going to find out what exactly it is, he thought to himself, studying the boy in front of him. Oh, he was just telling me to not be an idiot and mess this up, Naru replied with a laugh, rubbing the back of her neck. That's it. Wow, you got off lucky it seems this time, Sakura replied, surprised. Well team, I'll give you the rest of today to pack up and get ready to go. See you at 8 tomorrow morning at the main gates. Later, Kakashi said, disappearing in a puff of smoke without waiting for a reply. The next day dawned as clear as it usually was in the land of fire, the four shinobi and one already slightly drunk civilian gathering at the front gate. This is it, 2 kids and a shrimp. The old man slurred, looking at the 3 children, not catching sight of Kakashi yet. Naru looks around to see who the old man was calling a shrimp before it dawned on her that it was her. I am not a shrimp. You old drunkard, she yelled, pointing at the old man glaring at him. I'm sorry for his behavior. Naruto-kun, behave, this is our client. Tsunade-san is the bridge builder. And to address your other question, I will be going with the 3. I'm their sensei, Hitaki Kakashi. Kakashi said, rubbing the back of his neck as he talked. He doesn't respect anybody though, she said childishly, crossing her arms and growling. She had a part to stick to after all, even though the anger in the words was not faked. She had forgotten about the fact that she would be sleeping with others, in the same room, and was currently mentally berating herself for not thinking about that. And it didn't help that the old man had called her short, so with that said, the group started off. Why couldn't I have just asked the Hokage for an S-ranked assassination mission instead of getting jumpy and demanding a higher profile mission? She groaned silently 2 hours later, and still whining. Because you didn't think, the QB answered with a smirk. Oh, be quiet Q-chan, Naru muttered to herself out loud. What did you say, Dobi? Glancing back at his sulking teammate, Kakashi, who was walking on the other side of Tsunade, looked over at Naru as well, having heard the comment perfectly with his enhanced senses. Just wondering out loud how long it's going to take until your Tem-ass gets off its high horse. The blonde shot back, glaring. Sakura glared at Naru from behind as Kakashi dropped back to trade places with her, effectively keeping her from shouting at the disguised girl. Naruto-kun, please drop back here. Sakura-chan, walk right point of Tsunade-san. Sasuke-kun, please walk left point. We'll take the back while we talk, Kakashi requested politely, receiving nods from the 2 other team members while Naru, grumbling, dropped back. So what's the matter? He asked while using Anbu hand signs to say, Fox troubling you again? Sasuke-tem's attitude. Naru grumbled for the other 3's benefit. Somewhat. It's actually my fault. I forgot about sharing rooms. I can't drop the henge around the others. She signed back frantically. Kakashi hid a wince, having forgotten the same thing, and nodded his understanding. We'll figure something else out later. Was signed as he said, well Naruto-kun, Sasuke-kun is your teammate, you have to learn to work together. Kakashi replied. But Kakashi-sensei, Naru whined, crossing her arms over her chest in a huff. No buts. Kakashi replied as Naru's eyes widened fractionally before her shock was hidden by her mask again. You sense? She asked in a low voice. Yeah, you're back guard, I'm front, he replied quietly, spotting the puddle up ahead. Fine, the blonde said loudly, sounding sulky, before Kakashi, poofed, to the front of the group. Wait please, we seem to have some inconsiderate company. Kakashi said, Sasuke and Sakura's eyes widening as they glanced around. 1. Naru whispered, seeing the puddle start to shift, just as quickly Kakashi's battle had begun, giving her the distraction she needed. 2. She whispered again, creating a cage bunchen quickly in the bushes and flipping with it using a kawarimi. 3. She whispered behind the other shinobi in the bushes, her eyes turning red with slitted pupils. You shouldn't have picked this mission, she said softly with a giggle, hearing the man's breath catch in surprise as she slit his throat neatly and left his body there, not a drop of blood falling on her. Unnoticed by the others, she flipped with her bunchen again using another kawarimi and dismissed it, watching wide-eyed and acting like she froze as the assassin, who still had no clue about his partner's demise, appeared in front of her. The mechanical claw-like weapon in place of his arm rose up and scratched her, just as Kakashi knocked the enemy away. Sorry Naruto-kun, if I had realized you had froze I would have moved sooner. He said, knowing what she was doing. You okay, you big chicken? Sasuke said with a smirk. I am not a chicken Uuteme. Naru shouted as Kakashi grabbed her arm, seeing the tear in the fabric and the red stain growing down the side of her jacket. Naruto-kun, this wound is poisoned. Kakashi said with a frown, looking down at the edges of the already inflamed skin with his Sharingan he had revealed slightly through a tiny slit he made when he adjusted his hitai to see through her henge. He frowned, seeing multiple scars running down her arm as well. Those, either were so deep they almost cut her arm in half, or the QB isn't healing her wounds. I need to see the damage completely, he must to himself, his eyes growing slightly wider as he saw the previous damage and the most recent. He adjusted his hitai again and covered his Sharingan eye again. What? Naru yelped as Kakashi touched the side of it, tracing a scar. She glared at him from beneath her lowered eyes, knowing he had seen part of her personal secret. Listen, funnel the QB's chakra down your arm as I cut along your vein alignment of your henge. You need to do this to get the poison out, but also so that we can continue. Zabuza Momochi is an informant of ours that worked his way up through the village of the Bloody Mist. This is the only way to get our information from our informant without suspicion. Kakashi said quietly, making sure to let his mask hide his mouth movements. I don't have the antidote to this one, we'll need to bleed out the poison or head back to Konohagakure. He continued in a louder voice so the whole group could hear them. Damn it, Naru swore, ripping her arm out of Kakashi's grip, her head lowered. I'll do it myself, she added in a whisper, a plan instantly forming in her head. Gripping a kunai, she slammed the tip a half an inch into her arm and twisted it, making sure to break open the vein. Quickly manipulating the QB's chakra into the poisoned area, she pushed the foreign substance out of her body while healing the 2 wounds. I swear with the blood from this wound to protect the old man. Reporting for duty Kakashi-sensei. Naru growled out, the 3 other beings in the clearing looking on in shock while Kakashi inwardly smirked. Nice job Na-chan, he thought quietly before adding, Naruto-kun, we'll need to bandage that wound before you bleed out. Crap, no, I don't wanna die yet. Hurry Kakashi-sensei, Naru said, inserting panic into her voice. Kakashi quickly took a bandage roll out of his pack and bandaged both wounds quickly, even though they were already almost healed. The next few hours passed without incident, but the 2 genin were now on high alert, twitching at any small noise made by an animal, Naru having to act along with them. Once they reached a wide stream that looked like it was flowing towards the ocean, they found trouble again. Naru glared across the water at Zabuza held Kakashi prisoner. The 2 had learned that even though he was an informant of Leaf, he was a good fighter, as he was supposed to be with the A-rank missing nin status he had achieved. Kakashi had even had to reveal his Sharingan. Damn it, Kakashi swore as he was trapped inside the water jutsu, forced to watch his students desperately attempting to protect the bridge builder and fend off Zabuza. Even if he had to act more worried than he he was still worried about Naru. If her hinge slipped for even a moment, Sasuke or even Sakura would be able to start connecting the dots, meaning the 6 years of infiltration that she had put into her part were put to waste. Zabuza's water clone explained the graduation ceremony that he had went through as only Zabuza could, manically with a murderous crazy look in his eyes. So, Naru said with a snort, her own persona slipping through as she remembered her past. Zabuza's eyes narrowed from his position by Kakashi when he heard the Academy Shinobi's reply. All anyone else could do was stare in shock for a few seconds at Naruto's reaction. Kakashi groaned almost silently, the bubbles escaping his lips as he performed the action. "Naru-chan," he mouthed silently. "Well, Kakashi-san, it's been interesting, but I can't give you the report yet. There's something interesting I need to add. Besides, I want to find out more about Naruto-kun, or should I say, Naru-chan?" He asked the last Hatake with a smirk. Kakashi's eyes widened as he realized the water had transmitted his words perfectly somehow to Zabuza. He had inadvertently given a clue away about Naru's undercover job. "Sasuke!" Naru's hanged voice cried out, making him look over. She knew she would have to take out Zabuza with her teammates' help in order to not give herself away. "Listen up, there's something I wanna tell you." "What is it?" Sasuke asked from his position in front of Tsunade. "I have a plan," was all that came by way of reply. Now he has a plan. Sasuke thought with a smirk. HMPH, so it's time for teamwork. He stated, his voice obviously stating that he was thinking about earlier that day. "What's this? I feel strange, this is so, Naruto-kun is so," Sakura thought, glancing between the two preteens. "Okay, let's get busy," Naru said, a gleaming entering her eyes as she looked back over her shoulder at her teammates. She then made about 50 cage bunshin, all of them except one jumped on the demon of the bloody mist while she hanged into a Fuma shuriken, having one of her clones take her place. The doppelganger threw her to Sasuke as he used a sleight of hand trick to pull out his own Fuma shuriken, making the two blades look like one. Snapping them out so he could use the shuriken, he raised them to eye level and glared at Zabuza, one of his eyes covered by a blade of a giant shuriken. "Demon Wind Shuriken, Windmill of Shadows," Sasuke whispered as he jumped into the air, hurling the shuriken at the real Zabuza. "TCH, amateur," the missing nin said as he caught the first shuriken. His eyes widened momentarily when he caught sight of the second shuriken only a few feet away and rapidly closing in. "Still an amateur," he called out, jumping over the hanged Naru. As soon as Naru had passed under their informant, she quickly reverted back into her Naruto henge and threw a kunai at him. In order for him to get away, Zabuza had to release Kakashi, but still didn't manage to escape unscathed. A cut blossomed on his cheekbone as he glanced back at the genin. Zabuza swung around in the middle of his evasive maneuver, glaring at the blonde and bringing the Fuma shuriken around to whip it at the child in retaliation. A loud thunk echoed across the clearing as Kakashi's metal hand guards caught a blade of the shuriken, stopping it in mid-swing. "Surprised?" Kakashi asked, sarcastic amusement practically dripping from the syllables. Zabuza quickly sprung away as he started the hand seals for the move that he and Haku used as a signal to tell Haku to butt into the fight. Momochi Zabuza of the 7 legendary swordsmen from Kurigakure wasn't stupid. He may like to fight and kill, but he was not stupid. Stupid people died in the old academy. 2 water dragon jutsus released the same time, creating a clash of nature that made the 3 people still on land to gape in amazement. Zabuza leapt back up onto land only to be pierced by 2 Senbon needles through his throat. Everyone stared, looking on as Zabuza fell to the ground with a thud. Kakashi glanced up at the tree, a young male Kiri hunter nin standing on one of the branches. So this is his pupil, Kakashi thought, raising an eyebrow at how young, but powerful, the shinobi was. Junin power levels at the very least, however well compressed and hidden it is. He added as he sensed for the brown-haired man's chakra. He bent over and carefully checked the informant's pulse. Temporary death stasis. He stood back up, keeping his eyes on the nin in front of him now. Naru stared wide-eyed at the shinobi that had appeared to take out Zabuza, keeping up her act perfectly. Well, apparently he's not ready with his report, she thought, looking over the scene as she leapt out of the water. "Thank you for distracting him, I've been tracking this traitor for several months now," the Kiri hunter said, looking at the group. "No problem, thank you for taking care of our annoyance," Kakashi replied, watching as the shinobi that had appeared next to Zabuza, picking him up. The male gave Kakashi a polite nod, swinging Zabuza's arm and chest over his shoulders. "Farewell," he said softly and disappeared. A few moments of silence descended throughout the clearing before Naru chose to make her act valid again. After all, she was the one who had thought up the plan to release Kakashi. What the hell, Kakashi-sensei? That you what the hell? She shouted in her now common, idiot, mode. Be quiet, Naruto-kun, that boy was probably one of the strongest people you'll ever meet at such a young age. The silver-haired shinobi said quietly, his voice carrying to the other members of their small group. The rest of the trip was passed in relative silence right before entering Tsunade's house. Kakashi was practically dead on his feet from the use of the Sharingan, so he was even slower than normal and went straight to bed after the group had arrived and been introduced to Tsunade's 28-year-old daughter, Tsunami, and some startling facts were revealed. Zabuza was alive and well. That had given everyone an, oh shit, moment, and a few minutes later they were still trying to recover. Of course, the two Anbu operatives already knew this and several other things, so it didn't truly matter too much to them. Soon after, an explanation was drawn out of Kakashi, who made sure he didn't let a hint of anything other than what appeared to be happening slip out or show on his face. Tazuna was dumbstruck, Naru's face rearranging to copy the bridge builders almost as quickly as it appeared on said man's face. Sakura's jaw was completely slack, her eyes huge, worry shining brightly as her inner Sakura blazed about. Sasuke looked slightly surprised, but he had figured out the answer in the moments between an explanation of what a shinobi hunter nin was and the final revelation, as Kakashi privately thought of it as, and so he had been able to hide his surprise for the most part. A short discussion ensued about what steps had to be taken, resulting in rest for Kakashi, and an increase in the trio's training schedule. When it was finally time to sleep, Naru created a cage bunchen to replace herself with and camped out in the woods that night. She had forgotten to talk to Kakashi earlier about sleeping arrangements, but it was too late now, she'd just have to deal with this issue until the onsen. The next day Kakashi hobbled out on crutches and explained their newest training exercise. Naru, ever continuing her act, struggled to learn how to walk up trees while Sakura finished surprisingly in one go. Even more surprising was Sasuke's struggle, it seemed he was having problems as well. Dinner that night was mostly uneventful. Okay, that's a lie. Sakura had to drag Sasuke and Naru back to the house, both of them tired enough to give up their pride and receive help from their teammate. There the four shinobi finally met Inari, Tsunade's 7-year-old grandson. Naru kept up her act successfully by saying something about being a hero when she was older, to which Inari replied there was no such thing and left for his room. Curious about what was happening with the child, the blonde followed him with the excuse of setting him straight. What she saw made her pause. Inari was sitting on his desk, clutching a picture like a lifeline to his sanity, sobbing his heart out. Small, broken cries of, "Father," could be heard as the tears poured out of the tiny child. The Jinchuriki backed away silently from the door, her heart so heavy, the agony she felt practically written across her face as she quietly went to the room she shared with Sasuke. "Q-chan, could you keep my henge up for me?" the blonde girl asked silently, a pleading tone entering her voice. "Sure, Kit, but don't expect this to happen often. It'll end up hurting you in the long run," the kitsune replied sternly. "Okay," she whispered, her mind going blank as she fell backwards onto her futon in her mind. She allowed her prisoner to take control as she curled up on the bed inside the Fox Lord's cage and cried her eyes out, silent tears escaping her real eyes as the Kyuubi pretended to be asleep in order to cover up the differentiation between the two's eye color. The duo spent the night like that, Kyuubi protecting her image as he slept, partially free of the cage for once, and Naru allowing herself to fall asleep crying for once in a very long while. The day after this occurred in basically the same way, except Inari was the one to overstep his bounds this time. Naru growled at Inari's crybaby manner. She knew he was having problems, but that didn't mean that he should cry all the time. "Shut up," she growled darkly. Instantly the other people in the room froze in shock. Her bangs in her hanged form hid her face from view. "Stop acting like you're the only one in pain." "What?" Inari stuttered out in shock. Sasuke and Sakura looked at their teammate with new eyes. They had never seen Naruto act like this before, not that they had paid enough attention to see a different reaction coming from him. "Stop the oh poor me act. He's dead. So what? Get over it. That's life, brat. Don't think you're the only one who knows of pain and suffering and loneliness. Grow up," she said harshly as she stood up abruptly and left the room to go back out into the forest. Kakashi sighed and shook his head in resignation. Now Naru's two teammates would be bothering him about her past. Inari silently stood after a few minutes of the complete quiet surrounding the group. He left the house and went to sit out at the end of the dock. An idea sprung into Kakushi's mind as he looked around the room, avoiding his students' questioning gazes. As the Junin sensei thought about it, he found that he liked the idea more and more, so, after dinner was finished, he followed Inari out to the docks, knowing his two real genin were following him to the best of their silent capabilities. You know, he said with a sigh, as way of introduction as he sat down next to the child. Naruto-kun isn't really that good with words. He grew up alone, not knowing his parents, never having even a friend. His first friends were made in the Shinobi Academy, who later shunned him. Kakashi said quietly, knowing his genin could hear him perfectly. He doesn't know how to act around others exactly. His mannerisms are rough around the edges because he has never had anyone to care for him. The silver-haired shinobi explained as he stared straight ahead, looking out at the tranquil sea laid out before him. Inari and Sakura were staring at Kakashi with their mouths gaping open. Sasuke, on the other hand, was looking on with wide eyes, taking in the information as he covered Sakura's mouth before she could ask a question on the discussion he was, oh so positive, they shouldn't be hearing. And you know what? I've never seen him cry over his fate since I met him, hell I've never seen him seriously cry period. Kakashi added for their benefit. He was telling the truth in a way. Kakashi had seen Naru cry a few times, but never Naruto, at least, never seriously. Sasuke dragged Sakura back into the house at the end of that comment, their expressions pensive and thoughtful, trying to figure out this new mystery their teammate has hidden from them successfully until now. We need to actually be friendly to Naruto-kun, shouldn't we? We haven't been the best teammates, Sakura said quietly, her voice, face and thoughts filled with sadness and questions. It wouldn't be too bad of an idea to try and work on our inter-team relationships, Sasuke said, wincing mentally at the thought. At least with Naruto, he added silently, his face closed off emotionally as he thought. Meanwhile Naru sat in the middle of a flowery clearing in her natural form, looking up at the stars. Q-chan, she questioned quietly, her voice sounding hesitant and slightly confused. Yeah, the kitsune asked in return, ready to offer what comfort he could. Do you ever wish you were a star? Just, looking down on the events that took place. Never having to feel the pain you see others feel? She asked after a few moments of the silence resuming. Semi-dried tear tracks stained her cheeks, her eyes feeling itchy while her head felt fuzzy from the silent tears she had cried earlier. The Nine-Tails snorted. No, he said strongly, I'd rather be in the middle of it, screaming at whoever was causing me that pain and going after them for blood, maybe. If it was my mate, then I'd probably be more forgiving, I would want to experience everything, instead of looking in from the outside, he added thoughtfully, wincing mentally at the word forgiving. To think, he had sunk so far from his lifestyle, of course, living inside the human the fourth Hokage had sealed him and had opened his views on a lot of things as well. Oh, Naru replied, looking at that side of the argument as she stretched and moved herself into a more comfortable position. For the next few days two of the three young shinobi trained hard and long. Sakura, since mastering the tree-walking exercise, guarded the bridge builder while he worked. Naru and Sasuke worked on their skills. Well, Sasuke worked, Naru goofed around and acted like she was actually training. One night Sasuke left slightly early, allowing Naru some time to meditate and breath. She had never had to hold up this specific mask for the amount of time she had recently. Falling asleep outside wasn't in her plans, but truly, like at any time she wasn't in her safe room, the sleep was only a half-sleep. Morning came and with it a young woman. You'll catch your death of cold if you sleep on the ground. A voice came from above Naru, slipping past the fog of hazy sleep she had descended into. How'd she not make me wake up? She thought in worry. I sensed she wouldn't do any harm, damn. I'm going soft, Kyuubi replied with a growl. Naru yawned and hid a grin while looking up at the young woman above her. Who are you? She asked, making sure to keep her voice sounding sleepy, even though she was completely alert. Haku, I'm gathering medicinal herbs, she said with a smile. So this is Zabuza's apprentice. She thought, her eyes flashing with hidden knowledge. Nice to meet you, I'm Naruto, the blonde said softly, standing and offering her help gathering herbs. Quote. So, what were you doing out here at the crack of dawn? The brunette asked, her voice laced with curiosity. Training, Naru said excitedly, glancing up to see if she bought it. Unfortunately, she didn't. Is that so? Haku asked, her eyes flashing to the headband around Naru's head. Not really, She stuck out her tongue and rubbed the back of her neck sheepishly. I needed to get away from the others. It's so hard. The last broken sentence came out in a mangled whisper, her mask falling without her consent. What's hard? Concern laced the girl's voice, making it sound like a male's for a moment. Living. Why do people want to live? It's so hard, she said just as softly, sitting back on her heels and allowing the pain to flash in her eyes. Your eyes. You have the same eyes as. Haku whispered in shock, seeing the pain, loneliness and hurt deep inside the crystal blue eyes. As me. Silence descended on the clearing as the two watched each other, one wary, one in shock. Tell me, do you have anyone special in your life? She asked, her head tilting sideways, making her hair spill over her shoulder. A few. That's the only reason I'm still here. For them. I live. No, I survive for them, the hanged girl said in way of reply, starting to get lost in painful memories. We're the same, aren't we? The young woman asked softly, touching Naru's hand to draw her attention away from her memories. Naru connected the dots quickly and drew her conclusion at the girl's identity. It would seem so, Haku, apprentice of Zabuza. The blonde replied, watching as the girl jerked back in surprise. Don't be so surprised. After all, who would expect Sharingan Kakashi to have a partner so young? She asked with a smirk, redirecting the conversation in another direction quickly and efficiently. Indeed, the feminine voice dropped away, revealing a soft masculine voice instead. Naru suppressed a violent jerk to the point where it was only a slight flinch. Nevertheless, Haku noticed and backed up a few feet for her comfort. You have no need to worry, I just thought it would be good if we got some communication now since the opportunity arrived. My name's Naru by the way, not Naruto. Naru said in way of reply, undoing her hinge and allowing her long blonde hair to show with her more feminine figure, even if the horrid, baggy clothes were still there. Quote. Zabuza-sama's report isn't ready due to the fact we think we may have a chance to kill off Gato soon. Tomorrow most likely, since he is mounting an attack on the bridge builder. If we do kill him, we'll need to fake our deaths so the hunter nins do not find our scent again. The long-haired brunette added in, his eyes darting around the clearing. You'll have to lay low for 3 months after this, unless you planned on a long-term infiltration mission. The blue-eyed girl said, tapping her chin as she thought. Well, those of us with the same eyes need to stick together. I'm sure we'll meet again, Naru-san. Haku said, the two of them both sensing a chakra source coming their way while he was referencing their similar pasts. Naru recognized it as Sasuke's and quickly reapplied her jutsu. It was nice to meet you, Haku-san. Give Zabuza-san my regards and I will inform Kakashi-senpai of the information you have given me. I will hopefully see you tomorrow. The Uzumaki heir replied in kind, diving back under her mask as Sasuke came into view. Haku started to walk away and turned around quickly, giving Naru a wink as he started in on his parting comment. Just so you know, I'm a boy, he added in his more feminine voice, making the Uchiha heir pause and blink at his form. Naru hid a smirk behind a gaping, oh my god, are you serious? Look quite well, which reinforced Sasuke's opinion that Naruto was an idiot, even though he didn't know that fact when looking at Haku either. The next day dawned just as bright and cheerful as the last. Naru had successfully reported Haku's information to Kakashi, who had decided she should stay back and protect the daughter and grandson. Which in the end proved to be useful, seeing as they were supposed to be taken as hostages and probably would have been sold in the black market slave auctions in Kiri when the mercenaries got a chance if Naru hadn't been there to stop them. I need to get to Kakashi-senpai. Haku-san and Zabuza-san should already be attacking. I'll need to head off Sasuke-tem from messing up our well-laid plans. Naru thought as she took off to go after her teammates. All right, I promised an interlude, so here it is. This one takes place after Naru tells her teammates who she really is, but before the Uchiha massacre. I think Naru's about 7 at the time. She may be 6 though. I really didn't put a specific time for this FIC, just a general. Naru's young and the conditions are this for this FIC, so yeah. Itachi sighed in annoyance inwardly, keeping his mask of slight disdain in place perfectly as he walked along one of the many dirt roads that made up Konoha. He was finally back from the chakra-draining Anbu assassination and retrieval mission he had been on for the last week with his team and was currently too close to chakra exhaustion to risk using his chakra to use the rooftop ninja roads to go home. Whether this was a blessing or a curse, he had yet to decide. His two teammates had already went home for the night by the time he had been let out of the Anbu medic bay. The wounds hadn't been serious and he had told them to go home after the stress-filled week. A muffled curse emitted from the alleyway he had passed, which was normal for the time. After all, drunks were out, but the words following the curse made him pause. "Stupid demon bit me. This looked like it could get infected to you." A drunken male slurred to someone else. The Uchiha heir frowned at those words and hurried into the darkened alley, connecting dots at the normal rapid pace he usually did. What met his eyes when he was far enough into the shadows made a feeling of horror beat through his mind and body. Earlier, Naru groaned as she reached the conclusion that a few drunks had targeted her. After all, she was the demon of Konoha. Why did I not just let myself go hungry for the night? She asked herself as she quickly slipped into an alleyway and hid her grocery bag of food. Well, what do we have here, boys? Looks like we've caught the demon. A drunken man slurred out, alcohol practically physically seeping from his pores. The scent was so strong. Raucous laughter was heard as the trio of males formed a half circle around the girl child. One of them was palming a rusted kunai. Easy to obtain inside a ninja village, so it really wasn't a surprise to the Uzumaki heir. From there things only got worse. Itachi abruptly moved, slamming the three men into the opposite side of the alley, adrenaline pumping through his veins as anger radiated off of him. Sharingan turned on like a light switch being flicked, and he was on them in an instant. Flesh hitting flesh and pained grunts were the only sounds emitting from the darkness around them for a few moments. Itachi made sure the three would stay unconscious before moving back over to Naru's small form. Kyuubi's chakra was slowly knitting the girl's flesh back together as rust-red blood seeped from the still open wounds. Kyuubi was forcing rust out of the child's body. "Tachi ni," Naru murmured quietly, her eyes clouded and sliding in and out of focus. His eyes burned slightly at the youth and fear instilled in the voice coming from his teammate, "No, adopted sister." "Yes, that sounded correct. Don't worry, rest, I'll take you back to your room. Let Kyuubi heal you," Itachi said quietly, bending down and lifting the girl in his arms. "Groceries," Naru managed to murmur out before she passed out completely, Kyuubi taking over fully at that point. "You'll need to carry me while I act unconscious. My eyes are a dead giveaway. Head to Naru's apartment, I'll get you into her room," the demon fox lord stated, closing his container's eyes after making sure he got the food from behind the garbage cans. Itachi soundlessly followed the almost command without an ounce of protest. He was in a slight state of shock from the violence he had seen his Imouto experience. The duo arrived in Naru's apartment, though to call it that would be an insult to the word. He quickly put up an obscuration jutsu and Kyuubi explained how to get into Naru's safe room. He washed the blood off of Naru's now healed skin, forgetting for a moment his Sharingan were activated. He saw through the illusion immediately. Scars laced up, down and across the girl's skin, thick, ropey scars that were layered, making it hard to tell if there was any untouched skin at all. A muffled, pained gasp escaped from his throat before he hurriedly rinsed the rag in the bowl of water he had gotten from the bathroom earlier. "Don't let her know I let you see," Kyuubi warned the Uchiha, before succumbing to unconsciousness as well. He was tired from healing Naru. It got harder and harder each time he made the scars disappear, using more chakra up. Hours passed and with it dawn broke. About 2 hours after sunrise, Naru woke up quickly to a shadow looming over her. Itachi was broken out of his meditative rest as a fear-filled, choked whine came out on a thread of a voice. "Shish, Imouto, shush, Naru-chan, Imouto-chan, please." He managed to choke out, the sight of the girl he had come to look at with as much caring as he did his younger brother almost breaking his emotionless mask. Naru breathed deeply, starting to calm down as she recognized the voice. "Itachi ni?" she asked quietly, her voice sounding unsure. "Don't worry Naru-chan, they won't bother you again. After all, Hokage-sama will be doing something about this issue." He finished his sentence mentally, watching as the blonde slowly inched to him. Arms suddenly wrapped around his chest as tears wet the shoulder of his black shirt. Rubbing Naru's back in a comforting manner, he allowed himself this small crack in his mask. If there had been any way for anyone to see this scene, he couldn't be allowed the compassion, but with Kyuubi's earlier assurances of privacy from the long-forgotten ancient seal he had showed Naru how to set up, he could allow himself to show the humanness he usually had buried deep within his heart of hearts.